Hi everyone and Happy New Year. Sorry I haven't put my webcam on, but I'm feeling a bit rough today. Basically, this is going to be a quick video on somebody asked a question. Hi John, how would you go about photographing a wedding in not optimal conditions? Dark, I think he meant, and wet conditions. And how would you go about doing group shots indoors if the light was really poor in low light? Now, first of all, I'm just going to assume a few things, and I could be wrong. I'm assuming that you have not done very many weddings, or this may be your first wedding that you're going to do on your own. Well, a couple of tips for you. I mean, I have done, if you search through my videos, there's plenty of videos on wedding photography. There's tips, tricks, and there's a fair few wedding videos. I did a fair few of them which answer a fair lot of questions. So I don't know if you've searched for them, because a lot of people are actually asking me questions now that are actually answered in videos. Like somebody asked me if I'd done a review of a lens, or do I fancy doing one, and I did it a year ago. It is there in my videos, so there is some help there for you. But I don't know if I've really answered the question that you said. Basically, all my weddings, or a lot of my weddings I go to, whether it be raining or really badly sunny, it's still classed as not optimal conditions, because that's what it is with wedding photographers. Sometimes you have to cope with what you've got. You can't just like a landscape photographer might go out at 4:30 in the morning to catch the sun rising to get the perfect light and the perfect shot. Well, you don't have that option. Basically, if your wedding's at 6 o'clock on a night and it's getting dark outside, like I've got a wedding in 3 weeks at Temple Newsome, and you know, it's winter. The chances are I can't fully answer your question on group shots indoors. I know how I'd combat it though, because I've done group shots indoors, not at weddings, but at parties and stuff like that. I have never really done big group shots indoors. Not if I was, and if it was raining outside, I would ask the church if I could do the group shots inside the church. And where would I place them? Well, it'd probably be on the altar, and I'd use the steps on the altar and place them all around the altar. I've never actually been able to do that. I have asked the vicar, and usually they kick you out after the ceremony. It's not like America. They don't let you take pictures in church and do some bridal and groom portraiture, because I'd love to do some of that in church and have 10 or 15 minutes in there with bride and groom. But it don't happen. They tell you to get out. Everyone I've asked has said, "Oh no, you can't photograph. See you later, bye bye," and booted me out. But that's where I'm sure if it were raining, I know one time I asked, and the vicar said to me, "Look, if it's raining, you can do the group shots inside." So they probably would have let me go inside then, and I would have used the altar at the front. Now, how would I combated that? Well, I would have turned I'm just going to give you, I don't know if you know this, but I'll give you the base setting off top of my head. But I'll be honest, I do everything in manual, and I'd already know roughly what I needed my settings to be, because I'd already shot the wedding. So I'd know that if I were getting a good exposure at I don't know, f2.8 at ISO 1600 during the ceremony, I'd know that I want to be around f5.6, f8. So I'd probably leave my ISO there, and I'd use 2 flash guns. I would try bounce them off the walls if I could. That'd be my first option. Why would that be my first option? Because it's the easiest. I'll always take, when you're doing a wedding, I'll always take the easiest option first. Will it always be the best? Well, bouncing off walls is actually the best, because it gives you a massive softbox and it's dead easy to do. And if I had to do one flash off one wall and another flash off the other wall, then I would. If that wasn't working for me, I would put my shutter speed at 1/100 of a second at f5.6. I would shoot wide angle. I wouldn't want to be shooting telephoto, because, well, I suppose if you've got a really fast glass, you could do a couple of 2 people and 3 people telephoto. But to save messing around, I'd probably just have a wide angle lens on, maybe 24mm or my new 28mm prime. I'd put that on, and I'd walk in and out for me zoom. Saying that, I would have my 50mm and my 85mm on my other bodies. So if I was to do just 3 bridesmaids and maybe the bride, I might quickly throw the telephoto one on to blur the background. But you're asking me really how I'd combat it, and that's how. Let's say I'm doing a big group. I'd want f8 if I could get it. If not, I would shoot it at 5.6, but it's picking where to focus. If you shoot at 20mm at f5.6, I'm telling you now, you can get a fantastic depth of field there. You don't need to be at f8. You could even probably pull it off at f4. It's understanding depth of field and understanding where to focus. So what I'd do, if I had 6 or 7 lines of people, which would be a bloody lot of people, to be honest, that'd probably be 50, 60, 70 people. Basically, you want to focus. You want to focus a third of the way into the group, not the frame. So when you put the eye to your camera, it's not 30%. I'd class the group as my frame, and I'd focus about 30% into the group. And then you know that because you get double the depth of field at the back as you do the front, that the 30% are going to be clear in front and the other 70 or 60 are going to be clear at the back. So that's how to combat that. And you can shoot at 5.6. ISO, I'd start at 800, f5.6, 180th of a second. Now you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, that shutter speed's slow. It is slow, but bearing in mind, if you're using a fair bit of flash, then the flash will freeze the action. If at 100 of a second you're taking in boatloads of ambient and your flash is only for fill, then I'd speed your shutter up, and because what's going to happen is you'll get blurred images at 80th of a second or 100 of a second, and that's what some photographers actually, they're led to believe that if you use flash it freezes action. Now it does, that's exactly what it does. If you're just using a full flash picture with no ambience, you can shoot it at 30th, 60th of a second, jump up in air and the flash will freeze you in the air. But if you're taking in ambient, it won't. It'll be a blurred image. So you need to remember that. So always get your ambient exposure first. So get your group shot set up, or at least get one person there so you know roughly what your settings are going to be. And if you're happy without no flash, then don't use flash. But most at times, you will want to use a bit of flash because you're doing a group shot. You won't want to be shooting at ISO 3200 if can be helped, and the Vicar will let you use flash then anyway, whereas 98% of the time for me I can't use it in ceremony, so I might be at 3200, 6400 ISO. And I'm going to stop here now and just tell you a little very quick story, and then I'm going to jog on. Basically, I watched a video review of a guy that I always watch his videos that go up because he helps people like me on YouTube. He's in America, and he did a review of the 650D. Now, halfway through it, now I've seen the 650D, and the ISO performance is better than the 600D and the 60D. So he was doing the review, and halfway through it, he'd done the ISO testing, and he turned around and he said that he wouldn't recommend to anybody to use above 1600. Well, I'll tell you now, I use 6400 all the time. Now, if I'm a Photoshop dick who wants to come home, get me image, zoom into 100% and go, look at the state of that image. If I put it on side at bus and print it size at bus, it's going to look like that. That's not how it works. When you view at 100% in Photoshop, you're not viewing it at an A4 size. On an A4 size, the chances are you will not see any noise whatsoever, or you'll see very minimal noise even at ISO 6400. So he's saying bollocks. It's a load of bollocks. And if he watches my video, I'm not being nasty, I like the guy, but he's wrong. He obviously hasn't done his homework. I have. When I get my cameras, I did prints, I did no noise removal, I printed A4s, and I went right up to 6400 on my 60D and my 600D, and they look alright. There's a tiny little bit of grain, but that's if you don't remove any. I'm talking no noise removal from a raw file. If you just do a little bit of custom noise removal in Lightroom, you can make it look like a bloody ISO 100. Do you know what I mean? So don't be afraid to put your ISO up, but if you can keep it down, then obviously that I always do. If the Vicar said to me I could use flash during the ceremony, I wouldn't be shooting at ISO 3200. I'd be around 800, 1600, and I'd bounce the flash and just fill in the shadows and do it like that. But it never lets me use flash. So unless I want underexposed images all the time, I've got to up my ISO. I've got no choice. And if I shoot at f1.8 or f2 on some shots, then everything's always going to look bloody blurred. So it's a catch-22. Now, if it's raining, you mentioned bad weather conditions. If it's raining, you've still got to photograph it. Your camera, if you've got a good enough camera, I don't know what you've got, you never mentioned it, but if you've got a good enough camera, you should be able to shoot out in the rain. Now, obviously, depending, the last wedding I did, it was raining quite a lot. Well, not quite a lot, but it was raining. But it was fine. I shot it with both my cameras, and they're still both alive today. If it's really, really bad, you might want to get somebody to go with you and hold a big umbrella above your head and walk around with you. But again, it comes down to price. I usually like to take 2 photographers all the time, but sometimes I just can't. Because the bride just don't want to pay for the extra money for somebody else. Now, I know I could turn the job down, but I don't like to do that because that's not helping you in any way by giving it to somebody else. And I still pull off good shots and good things on my own anyway. But I must admit, Jesus Christ, it's a lot better with 2 photographers, and I highly recommend that if you can, because then you've got an helper. Don't forget, reflectors are a fantastic tool. Reflectors are really good. I highly recommend you get one of those, if not 2. Get a big un, a really big un, for about 30 quid, a massive un, and then get an in-between for about 15 quid, and they will help you boatloads at weddings. They're fantastic. If you haven't got a really good low light lens, I recommend you get a Nifty 50. I have reviewed that. If you want to have a look at that, the Canon Nifty 50, because you'll find out that you do like to have those fast glasses. To be honest, I've got all fast glass now. I shot a couple of my last wedding shots at 6400 on my 70-300 Tamron at f5.6. And that's why I had to go to 6400. But now I've got lenses that I can shoot telephoto at f2. So it'll be quite interesting to do my next wedding. But to be fair, the only thing that I'll see different is when I zoom at 100% in Photoshop, the new images will look less noisier at 100%. But on the bloody print, I'll assure you there'll hardly be no difference. There'll be a bit of colour difference and stuff, but quality-wise, there'll hardly be anything. So don't forget, don't always look at your images at 100% in Photoshop. I mean, I know you're taught that when you edit 100%, and that is true, but it doesn't mean that that's what your image is going to... In fact, I'm not going to say it doesn't mean. It doesn't, and it isn't what your image is going to look like on a 12:8. That could be around a 40:30. And then you're going to see it as you see it on your screen. And don't forget, your screen's your screen. I paid just over 200 quid for mine. Most people are using a laptop that costs 280 quid. That's got a screen in it that's like 40 quid. So you can't trust that screen anyway. So what I do is, if you've got a camera, if you're going to go to a wedding and you know you're going to do a wedding and you're going to be using an A4 album, get your camera, get it at ISO 1600, ISO 800, 1600, 32, 64, 1:8, and take some pictures and just get them printed, no noise removal. Bring them back, and I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised at how good ISO 6400 without any noise removal looks on an A4 print, which is usually the biggest print that you give a bride. A lot of people only do 10x8s. That we could probably do 128,000, and that's why people love David Zeiser. They went, oh my God, David Zeiser photographs with a 40D, man. And David did, and he didn't hesitate in putting his ISO up to 3200, because he knew what all idiots didn't know. They're all sat zooming into 100% going, look at that image at 3200 on a 40D. It's rubbish. But on print, it looks breathtakingly good. And that's all he were bothered about, because that's what he was shooting for. He wasn't shooting for Photoshop and 100%. He was shooting for the album. Thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe.